Three, two, one, let's go. Welcome back to another episode where I teach you the basics um, in Bitcoin, blockchain, cryptocurrencies. This is specifically for beginners. So if you're not a beginner, um, don't bother yourself because this is going to bore you. So these are small things that I think are very important. It can save you a lot of time. It can save you a lot of money. So these are some of the fundamentals of Bitcoin, of cryptocurrencies, of blockchain that you need to know if you are starting your journey on Bitcoin. These are the things that took me a lot of time to know as I have learned all this by myself. So I want you to start a few steps ahead of me, um, not where I have started. Okay, so if you haven't seen other three episodes, you can just go to my channel. I'll advise you to go and also view the other um, three episodes that I've done so far. Okay, so today I am going um, to do. I'm going to do the fees on Bitcoin. I'm going to do show you how to send Bitcoins, and then I'm going to talk on controlling the fees of Bitcoins. I'm going to talk how does I'm going to show you break down the transaction of Bitcoin. When you send Bitcoin, what happened? Um, okay, so let's start with doing a transaction of Bitcoin. I've just made some illustrations here. I made a drawing. I'm going to use this drawing to explain. First, I'm going to explain the transaction of Bitcoin. What happened when you um, do Bitcoin transaction? Okay, look at the first diagram here. You've got 5 Bitcoins that came into your wallet. These are the 5 Bitcoins sitting in your wallet or in your address. And you want to send 2 Bitcoins to another person. So what happens when you send Bitcoins from your address? Everything gets out regardless of how much are you sending. You've got 5 Bitcoins in your address. When you send, everything will go out. So 5 Bitcoins will go out. 2 will go to the person that you are sending, or to the address that you are sending those Bitcoins to. You want to send 2 Bitcoins. And 3 will go back to your address. Depending on the type of address, it might go back to exactly the same address, or if the wallet creates a new address, it will create a new address, but still controlled by the same private keys. So basically, it's going back to the same address. So just to summarize, you've got 5 Bitcoin in your address or in your wallet. You want to send 2 Bitcoin to someone. Everything will go out. 5 Bitcoins will go out. 2 will go to the person that you are sending the Bitcoins to, and 3 will come back to your wallet. Okay, so let's talk about fees. So Bitcoin fees in Bitcoin or in cryptocurrency in general, you are not paying for amount of Bitcoins that you're sending. When you send Bitcoins, you pay fees. That's why we've got miners. The miners, when they verify and validate the transactions, you have to pay fees. So those fees, you don't pay fees per amount of Bitcoin that you're sending. You pay fees per usage of space on the network. So there's a limited amount of space for miners to include your transaction on the blockchain. So the miners will look at um, uh, the size of your transaction. Size meaning the space in terms of bytes, not size meaning 10 Bitcoins, 20 Bitcoins. So what can happen is you can send a transaction of 10,000 bitcoins, or say $10 billion, and pay exactly the same amount in fees as somebody sending one bitcoin or 7,000 US dollar, even 100 US dollars. You can pay the same amount of fees. You can even pay more when you are sending less bitcoins than somebody who is sending more bitcoins. I'm going to explain that further now. Okay, let's look at these three scenarios. We've got the first one, the second, and the third one. The first one, you've got 5 bitcoins that came in as one transaction into your address, and you send it out as one transaction. You send everything out. So you're not going to have any return transaction here because you're sending everything out. Okay, the second one, they came in chunks of 2.5 and 2.5. So it's 5 Bitcoin here, and then you send it out as one transaction of 5 Bitcoins. And then the third one, it came in chunks of 1 Bitcoins. So 5 inputs, and then you send it out the same as the other guy at the top. So 5 Bitcoin out. So because you pay fees according to the space that you use on the chain, this transaction will pay more compared to this, and then will pay more compared to the first one. The first one will pay the least. Okay, just to simplify, this person only have one input or receive these 5 bitcoins as one transaction. This one receive as 2 transactions, but still they make 5 bitcoin. This one has 5 transactions. So these transactions, all these transactions are going to take space on blockchain or on the Bitcoin network. So if we just simplify things, this transaction, the second transaction, will take times 2 space of the first transaction, and this one will take times 5 of the first transaction. So just to summarize, not to confuse you, this transaction will probably pay times 5 the fees of the first transaction. Okay, so let's go and look at before we go there, let me just show you. Go to this website. Okay, this is the one of the websites that you can use to know the fees that you will be paying. You can see here currently the fees are like 24 satoshis per byte. Okay, the other thing that I should have mentioned before I've started or in the beginning, when you do a Bitcoin transaction, when you sign that transaction, when you are sending that transaction from your wallet, it goes to a memory pool. It's called a mempool. So the miners, they will go and pick the transaction from the memory pool, and then they will make blocks of 1 megabyte. It cannot be more than 1 megabyte. So the miners are going to first concentrate on those transactions that will make more money for them. So those transactions that's paying high fees. So you have got an option to specify how much are you willing to pay per byte that you are going to use on the blockchain. So when you do transactions, I will show you with another wallet here, or how do you change the fees. When you do the transaction, you can determine your own fees depending on how urgent is the transaction. If the transaction is very urgent, you will want to pay more fees so that the miner can pick it up. If you are not in a hurry, so you can pay less fees and wait for hours, 2 hours, a day, or whatever you wanna wait for. So here you can, in this website, I will attach the link of this website on the show notes below. So on this one, here you see currently, like I said, depending on the size of mempool, they do the estimation on how much are you going to pay per byte. So the high amount of transaction in the mempool, the higher will be the fees. If the mempool is low, the fees will also be low because the miners won't have any option. They will just have to take because there's not much transaction. But if the mempool is full, so they can pick and choose whichever transaction that they want according to the fees. So they will start picking the high fee transaction. But if it's low, then they will just pick everything. So in this website, you can calculate how much are you going to pay. So for instance, here it's a transaction. It's for a transaction with two inputs. It means there's two transactions that came in, like the second one that I showed on that sketch. So it's two inputs and two outputs. Remember, two outputs means you are sending it to one person, and then you've got a change that goes back to our address. So here you are going to pay 374 bytes. Okay, the size of transaction, this is the estimation. The size of transaction is 374 bytes. So you multiply 374 with 24, and then you're going to get 8976 satoshis. So you can come and change here. If your address received, say, 10 transactions, and then you are making one transaction out. So 10 transaction, it will equal to 1558 bytes. So you are going to pay 37392 satoshis. So now it changes. That's what I was explaining on the graph. You can receive that 5 bitcoins in 10 transactions of 0.5 bitcoin each, and then somebody receive it in one transaction. You see, you pay 2.65 USD for that transaction. You are sending out one transaction, but somebody who received that in one transaction is going to pay 0.38 USD cents. Okay, so I will attach this on the show notes so that you can play around with. So let's just go to a wallet here just to show the transaction. Okay, let me come here. Okay, that's one of my wallet that I use for Lightning. So I just want to show you here how do you send a transaction. Okay, obviously the wallets will differ. So here currently I'm using a blue wallet. So I will click on send there. I will either have to scan the wallet, or I can just copy and paste to whatever wallet address that I want to send to. Okay, and then I'm going to put amount of bitcoins that I want to send, and then here, this is the most important thing. Here you can see here, if you want the transaction to be fast, to be in the next block or the next 2 or 3 blocks, you can pay 31 satoshis per byte. But if you want it to be slow, you can go and pay 6 satoshis per byte. You can pay 12 satoshis per byte, depending on the urgency of your transaction or on the value of your transaction. Some they want the high value transaction, they want them to go as quickly as possible. So you want to send somebody bitcoins and you want them to go as quickly as possible. So you will decide how much do you want to send. Okay, so again, just to show you how to, for those that don't know how to send the Bitcoin, you can scan. You can have a QR code. You just scan wherever you're scanning, and then the address will come there, or you can just copy the address somewhere, and then you paste it there, and then you put the number of bitcoins that you want to send, and then you decide how many satoshis or how much satoshi per byte you want to send, how urgent is the transaction, and then you do next, and then you send the transaction. Okay, so now let's just go back to show you what can you do in order to reduce the fees of your transactions. So if you know that you have received bitcoins in many transactions into your wallet, the best way to reduce your fees is to combine those inputs and send it to your own address. You send it to the same address, or you can just create another address on your wallet and you just send everything to that wallet. So what you're going to do is you're going to look at the mempool. You can go back to this website. You are going to check here when, let me just refresh here, when the transaction, when the mempool is it's low, and then the satoshi per byte it's low, maybe less, at around 10 cents per byte. You can go and combine those transactions, whichever transaction that you have, maybe it's 10 transactions that came in, and then you send everything. It's gonna be one output because you're sending to yourself and you're sending everything. You do one output, and then you select the lowest fee that you can send. You can send it at 2 satoshis per byte. It might take very long for a miner to pick it up, but because you are not in a hurry to send it somewhere, you just want to consolidate it so that when you want to send, you don't know, maybe when you want to send the next time, it will be an urgent transaction. Then you don't have to pay a lot of fees. So combining your inputs, which is the transaction that came into their wallet, and sending it into your own wallet, basically the same wallet you're sending it to yourself, it can reduce your fees so that when the need arise, you want to send your Bitcoin urgently, then you can even pay high fees, and then you won't have to pay for 10 inputs that were coming into your wallet. You will only have to pay for one input, which is going to be very cheap. So that was it about sending bitcoins, the fees. How does the Bitcoin transaction actually work? So like I said, this is very basic. I'm not going deep into the technicals. So this is enough to know as a beginner. As time goes on, you dig deeper, and then you're going to understand what basically happening in the mempool, in the transaction, in the blockchain, the unspent transactions, and all those. That seems to be complicated now. Okay, that was it from me. If you've got any question, you can ask in the comments below. I hope this was helpful, and it will also help you to enjoy your journey with Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies, and blockchain. All right, I'm out.